Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Brock and the Fox This Week in Hockey podcast, brought to you by Sly Fox Sports Network. I am Jeremy the Fox Miller, the Fox, and with me is my co-host, Brock Banner.
What's going on, Jeremy? What's going on, the Fox?
Not much, man, not much. Talking hockey,
There's a lot
the
going
good
on.
stuff. Oh, yeah, there is
on.
a lot going on. We are at the midway point of the season. We will talk about midway points and what our disappointments and things like that are. But one thing I want to talk about in particular, being that I am an East Division guy and I do mostly cover the East, the biggest thing for me right now is the injury of Anders Lee for the New York Islanders, who have been streaking. They've won 9 straight, but now the question is, will Lee and his captaincy cause them to start losing more? Sure. They've also got Noah Dobson and Jean-Gabriel Pageau on COVID list. So that's 3 big names off the top from the Isles.
Well, first of all, Anders Lee, to lose them. First of all, the Islanders are one of the hottest teams going right now. They've won 10 straight. I mean, they're just having tremendous efforts. They're getting good games from everybody, but then to lose Anders Lee, who, again, one of their young stars, a guy coming up to the system, it's a gut punch. It's what we call in the business a ball buster.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it is. I mean, it's going to have to be one of these miracle things where someone else is going to have to step up. Those storylines do happen, but boy, you take a guy like that out of the lineup, out of the locker room, because again, he's gone for the season.
Yeah.
It's not like he's even coming back. He's not going to be skating with the team. Not sure what he really brought to the locker room, but he was another piece of that locker room. So, I think that there's going to be some effect there. But again, with the big 3 out, they've won 10 in a row. Maybe their fortunes could be changing. But again, it's a New York team. They always shoot up, and then sooner or later they come crashing back to earth.
Yeah. Lee was their captain, so that's a big loss for them. The loss of Pageau and Dobson to COVID protocol, I don't know how long that is, but they're definitely going to need somebody to step up in Lee's absence. And I'm looking at a guy like Nick Leddy, who has former Stanley Cup experience,
sure,
or Brock Nelson, who has been with the team for God knows how many years. And he might step up as a captain. Any ideas of who you think might step up?
Well, I mean, I got to tell you, I still love Matthew Barzal as one of the most exciting players, but I think the thing is these guys, they get these goals that are highlight reel goals, and you expect to see them every game, and it doesn't happen that way. They don't get those highlight reel goals every game. Usually most of the goals for players like that are dirty kind of goals. But I do want to kind of go back to, I think, people also need to remember the Islanders were really in the thick of things last year. And they were really, I think they did advance past, they lose in the first round. I know with the bubble, things were nuts.
I thought they were in the Cup or the Eastern Finals.
The finals, exactly. That's where I'm getting my years mixed up. But again, they're a good team, good organization. They've built it. They were in the dregs of the league. They were where Buffalo's at right now.
Yeah.
So, I give them credit for that. But how does an injury like this, again, you take their captain, their leader, again, just because you wear the C, are you really the emotional leader? I think sometimes that's a whole nother debate we can have.
Right.
Sometimes captains are great that way. Sometimes they're just guys with the C on who make a lot of money,
Yeah.
So that said, taking him out of the lineup, though, is going to be a huge loss for them. But again, that's what hockey is. It's about guys go out, other guys step up, and it's next man up. And the teams that can do that, consistently and roll out people who are just next man up, who can just take care of that role. Those are the teams that succeed. So this is the gut check for the Islanders.
It is going to be interesting to see if the Isles can keep up their winning streak, especially they've got, if I'm not mistaken, they've got Buffalo next. And that should be a pretty easy game. Or no, Buffalo's got the Caps.
Yeah.
The next game for the Isles is, I believe it was last night. They played the Devils.
Yeah.
They play the Devils tomorrow.
Yeah, they took an overtime.
They play the Devils. Or no, they play the Capitals tomorrow night. So they're right there is
Yeah.
where it's going to get interesting because the Capitals are not a team to sleep on. And
Sure.
if you've got a weak Islanders squad,
Mhm.
you know, it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep it up.
Sure. You know what's really intrigued me about the league wide though, and I'm sorry to you're getting
No,
ready
you're
to
good.
bust into a hot take right there, but I think what's going on in it, and I'm not sure I'm totally comfortable with it. It's just that the league has become, you know, because of the way the schedule has shaken out, everybody's in it. There's no really bad teams. I mean, there's maybe 3 or 4 bad teams, but you know, all the teams are stacked. And right now is a real pivotal time because every division, the top 4 are within points of each other's, without maybe I guess in the North, the Toronto's maybe, etch out to a lead. But again, Edmonton's playing great hockey. And so I think that in years past, your teams by the midway point, you really start seeing that separation and okay, these guys are out of it. You don't have to worry about them. Well, that's not really the case anymore because, there's so many teams that are really on the cusp and really fighting for it. So we talk about a team like the Islanders, it could be the talk of the town, a 10-game winning streak. Boy, if they hit a stretch where they lose, 3 or 4 series, boy, they could really be on the bottom of the pack too. So as a fan, I think I like it the old way. I like that comfort zone and I like to ride it out. But competitively, it's freaking awesome. You got to be honest with you. It's like every game is something you want to watch. You want to check in on Twitter about. But I'll tell you what, it's not good for the old ulcer, as they say.
Absolutely. Well, you brought up the North. You brought up the Maple Leafs. There has been some kryptonite in Toronto and in Montreal, and it's a team that nobody expected. Really, is the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
The Sens and the Sens have beat both the Leafs and the Canadiens in 6 straight. Like, that is ridiculous. But when you see the Senators play up against, they haven't beat the Oilers at all. They've played 6 with the Oilers, never won a game. And every game that they've played has been a blowout.
Yeah.
They've split with the Flames and the Jets as well. The Jets are a little bit of a team that the Senators can't get past. But the top 2 teams in the division, it's like Ottawa can just plow through them. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
ridiculous.
It's a head scratcher because they should be a lot better than they are. I mean, they got great young players. They got 2 players who are up for the Calder, with Norris and Tim Stützle, who scored a great goal the other night. Just was really just a nice little tip in, right place, right time. The Senators, got the Tkachuk. They like, you look at me like, why aren't these guys good? Again, I think they're playing in that North Division. There's so much parity, and I think, maybe it's a little bit different playing in another Canadian city. I don't know. I don't have that experience, but something's going on because you're right. They're going into Toronto and Montreal, 2 places that are not easy to play and have never been easy to play, and they're beating those guys, but they can't get by the Oilers. And again, now Oilers, they have, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who are again having, career years. You can't, argue there. So I don't know. I really think that I can't say one of the divisions that's going to be a sleeper. I mean, I think the next, 30 days will tell because that's when everything will start. People will start separating out. But for the first half of the season, it's been pretty solid.
Yeah. When you look at the Sens, you were talking about, the old ways of the East and the West. And do you think a team like the Senators would have benefited if they didn't have to play all the Canadian teams? Like if they had to play a Buffalo or a Boston or teams like that, do you think they would be better than they are now, or do you think they'd be worse?
I tell you, it's really hard to say because everybody had the season ended, everybody's in the bubble, it was a really effed up situation. And then, 2 months later, they're back on the ice for training camp. And there's still questions whether or not they were going to start, just a lot of like things that don't normally happen.
Right.
So I hate to feel like athletes that get paid a lot of money, can show up unprepared, but I think that, maybe they're just burnt out because they had such a drag of a season last year. This year there's so much uncertainty and it took some teams, a little bit time to get started. So I don't think the realignment has helped a team like the Senators at all. Again,
Right.
a team like the Anaheim Ducks, they're a good team, but they're floundering in the West. And they've given, like I said, the Blues and the Knights, they've given those guys good games. You talk about the East. Every division is very competitive. So what's going to be the key for me is what's going to happen in these next, I'd say, really 2 weeks. We saw Vegas and in St. Louis again. I'm here in St. Louis, so
Yep.
I speak a little bit more about that sort of division. But some of those key matchups are going to start happening. You're going to start seeing these teams play. The division leaders in all divisions are going to be playing each other over and over, and I think that's where you're going to really start seeing some competitive hockey. And also, let's remember, fans are coming back to the buildings. Some of the stadiums are opening up to 50, 100%. I mean, I think what New York is opening up to 100%. So I think that's going to bring another element that once the fans are there,
Yes.
man, some players are going to just show up and really turn it on. I would like to
Yeah.
think so, at least.
I would expect, now that fans are starting to come back, that some of these lower teams are going to get that boost from the
Mm.
fan support. Because that, honestly, you look at some of these games that have been going on and you are just you were just wait for fans to be like,
Mm.
what the are you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah, I know what you're saying.
Get your asses out on that ice and play the game.
Mm. Yep.
But it's like they didn't have the fans to push them through. Now that fans are starting to come back,
Mm.
I could definitely see some of these lower teams like the Ducks, the Sabres, even the
Mm.
Sens, maybe even the Red Wings
Yeah.
get
The
that boost
Sharks.
from the fans, the Sharks.
The Shark Tank, it's a great place to
Oh
live.
yeah,
Dallas is a tough place to live. So I do think that when you take into account the buildings that these teams play in,
yeah,
and how electric and Nashville, everybody around the league has different opinions about the Nashville fans, but they come out to support their team. And really, I mean, I would think it'd be a sad state of affair for any franchise when we open back up if they're not having, I would say 100%. I mean, 90%. I mean, I just don't know. People have been so locked up that this
right,
is a form of entertainment. Now, again, how much is it going to cost me? If I'm taking my wife and kids, am I going to be able to, drop a couple hundies? I don't know if I want to do
right,
that. I might just watch it online. So I think there's some real questions that the league has to answer in markets where they're not drawing and they're not really drawing in fans. So
exactly.
coming out of this, it's going to be real interesting to see from a business standpoint, which franchises are still having a problem drawing fans, and which franchises just aren't getting it.
Right. That's going to be that is going to be a good question. Now, I mean, like we said, we're at the midway point. Um, let's throw it out there. Who's been the biggest disappointment for you in the midway point of the season?
There's I think a few candidates, but I got to go with Buffalo, and I guess it's a bit of a bandwagon everybody's kind of jumping on. But you really look at their roster, and you look at some of the players, and but then again, you look at some of the decisions they made, and I remember when Vladimir Soroka played for the Blues, and he was a good player, but he wasn't a game changer. And Tage Thompson, it's like, hey, I'm out of all the guys that are still playing, I'm surprised Tage Thompson is still with the team. I didn't think he would ever make it because Patrick Berglund was, we used to call him the incredibly handsome but useless Patrick Berglund. The fans all loved him, the ladies all thought he was cute, but he was worthless on the ice. So again, not a fan here. So
Right, I
again,
got
some of
you.
those decisions here. Again, I'm just speaking locally here with the dealings we've had. Management shakeups. I read your article that's coming out in a couple days here about the Sabres, and just all the management shakeups and the leadership changes and the ownership, and it just is a pile of muck.
Yeah,
Every time you get
it
some of these
really is.
franchises, don't care what the sport is. It's an old man who gives the franchise to his kids, and the kids ruin it, and there's infighting, and they sell partnerships. Like, it just is a big pile of blah. And I think that's what the Sabres are under. Now, I will tell you, I do think Buffalo as a sports town is a tremendous sports town, and the Bills
Oh
are
yeah,
showing that, and the Bills are drawing people, and they're being competitive, and they've always had some of the rowdiest fans out there. So I'm sure that's going to transfer over to the arena. But boy, they just got to get their proverbial shit together, because you know what? I mean, fans only give you so many chances. You know, they really will. They just kind of like, we'll move on. And especially in today's digital age, you could be a fan of a team and not even live in that city. And
Right.
so they really got to understand how this new market works.
Exactly. Again, I agree. The Sabres are the biggest head scratcher for me. I did an article on the Sabres, like you said, and the two GMs before the current GM, Kevin Adams, absolutely royally screwed him. The one, Murray, with his trade with Ryan Miller, and the only piece on that one that was still around is Tage Thompson.
Yeah.
And then the Ryan O'Reilly deal that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was a bust because Botterill had no idea what he was doing. His drafting has been absolutely horrendous. And it's, but now Kevin Adams comes in after taking over from Botterill. He gets Eric Staal from Minnesota to bring in a good veteran presence. He got Taylor Hall, the top free agent. He brought in a couple other key pieces. They should be a contender, if not at least, you know, maybe in like that 5th, 6th place spot. They're dead last in the NHL right now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, injuries are a big part of it. And COVID, I mean, there was a week and a half where they didn't play because of COVID.
Yeah.
But you got
it. Seems like a team that's playing for the who cares title, you know?
It pretty much.
You know, we won next year and, you know, let our executives, you know, hang on the trees or whatever. But the thing is I think you're right. It's like, man, you got, you know, Taylor Hall. Everyone was talking about Taylor Hall last year. Like you couldn't get away from his name. You know, he was just everywhere. Jack Eichel, you know, another really exciting player. You know, you just go down the list. I mean, it's too many players to name. But again, why aren't they any good? You know, again, they're playing, you know, some top teams. They're playing the Islanders. They're playing, you know, Columbus and, you know, teams like that. So again, I'm not Columbus, but I'm saying they're playing just teams that are strong this year. And I just think that they're not playing for each other. They're not playing for their coach. So I think they're just playing to run out the season.
And at the end of my article, I love how I was looking it up, and they have no scouts outside of the U.S.
Yeah,
none in Russia, none in Finland, none in Canada. So management is going to go by virtual meetings and literally throwing a dart at a dartboard and saying, okay, we want this guy.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen in the offseason. They'll get a hockey guy to run their operation, someone who is more than just a name, someone who's a real, you know, maybe even a no-name person, but someone who's been in the game, maybe even been in an organization or been in a winning organization. And they'll bring that person in. He'll start making some changes. He'll start pressing some of these veterans, and he'll either find out they're either, you know, worth their weight or they're not. And I think a lot of teams find that with veterans, especially with coaching changes. You know, the veterans and the coaches don't work together, or the coach maybe asks the veteran to do some things that he's not wanting to do. And all of a sudden discord happens and the whole thing falls apart. So it could go either way in Buffalo. I mean, again, I think that the Sabres, they're playing, they got to play for some pride. You know, it's like, you know, just in that market, there's some ravenous sports fans, and they could benefit from having a great team. And much like some of these other franchises in other sports that have been dogs for many years, who all of a sudden make comebacks, you know, fans respond to that and they support that, and they pay to see that. So I'd like to see the Sabres getting that go.
So then we have been writing we've wrote some articles. You just did one or you've got one set up for Kyle Clifford.
Yeah, did one on Jay Bouwmeester just the other day.
You did one on Jay Bouwmeester as well, which I read that one, and that was fantastic.
Thanks, man. Dude. Thanks. I owe an apology. Like I said, I was dogging the guy, and you know what? He's pretty good. Now
he's gone, but he's never forgotten in St. Louis right now.
Yeah.
But
so what are you working on? You got your Carilla, which was a great.
I got Kirill that I did. I did the
Sabres.
The Sabres. I'm actually going to start working on a midway piece on the Senators, possibly, and I'm also going to do a piece, because I'm a Penguins guy. I'm going to do a piece on Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith.
That's cool. Cool.
They've been together in Wilkes-Barre for, I believe, 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about how their connection in Wilkes-Barre moves up now to the NHL, where they're the top 2 guys. Tristan Jarry, when Marc-Andre Fleury was still in Pittsburgh, was literally being molded into the number 1 guy in Pittsburgh by Mark.
Sure.
And Matt Murray was not supposed to be the top guy. He just came in and just awestruck everybody. And then he got the number 1 job, and Tristan went back to WBS with Casey.
Good. I'm looking forward to reading it. When's that come out? Next week?
I'm thinking that's going to come out next week.
Okay.
I'm going to start on the Senators one probably here in the next day or two, get that out. And then after that one, I'll get on the
hey, you know what I'm working on, believe it or not? You know, our man Guy Benson, he runs the Blue Note in St. Louis Fan Report. Shout out to our man Guy.
Absolutely.
We were talking, and he was just talking about how his site has really grown and how there's been kind of growth in fan sites. So he said, man, I'd love for someone to do an article on it. So I said, you know what, I might jump into that. Do you mind if I do that, guys? He said, sure. So I'm actually doing a story about how his site is growing. And you know, I put a disclaimer that he did not in any way shape the article or ask me how to do it. I just kind of thought it was an interesting look because, again, we've got people who are tuning in every game, you know, loyal fans who are commenting on every article. You know, Guy was on KMOX the other day, which is the voice of St. Louis, the voice of the Cardinal baseball for many years. So, you know, he's really making a lot of strides and getting the site out there. Again, the site's different. It's for the fans, by the fans, and about the fans, you know.
Absolutely.
And we're providing content that fans would enjoy. So, you know, again, look for that story. He and I were kind of tweaking it and going back and forth, you know, because I didn't think they liked that I wrote a bunch of really terrible stuff about him personally. I think he's going to make me edit that out. I'm kidding.
Right.
That's a great
of course
dude.
not. He is. He's a great guy. And since I've met him and talked to him, he took me under his wing. So if he wouldn't have, I wouldn't be doing this with you. And some of my articles that I wrote, I probably wouldn't have been writing them.
Yeah.
I bet I would have been doing my normal videos that I were doing before of game notes and injuries and reviews that only got like 2 or 3 views a pop.
Sure.
But because of him,
we can't be caught up in the number of views. I'll tell you, I appreciate the comments. Again,
absolutely.
You know, surprised by certain articles that do well and other articles that don't do as well. And you just, you kind of go with it. But for me, you know, my background is I've been a sports writer and I got out of it. Got out of journalism to feed my family, as they say. You know, worked in marketing and PR and stuff, but I've always enjoyed sports writing. So when this opportunity kind of came open, you know, again, I'm learning, I'm new at it. I'm still trying to regain some of my form that I had before I wrote in Europe, actually. Little trivia note, I actually covered the Blues when they played in Dusseldorf, Germany in 1992, I think it was. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was interesting. I was
that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a subject for another subject.
Right. Another time.
My point being is, like, we're all new at this. Again, we're not professionals. We're trying to be the voice of the fan. We're trying to be in touch with what people want to know about and what they're interested about. So again, drop us a line in the comment box where we always respond to those. We read those. We hear what people say about the articles, and we take those things to heart.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go because I know we've got.
You know, tonight that the game against the Kings is snowed out.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You got to love Colorado.
Because the Kings were stuck in Colorado. They couldn't fly back into LA. The Blues are in LA. So schedule weirdness,
but they still will play on Wednesday. So we'll definitely be available Wednesday for pregame, postgame, and intermissions with Guy at the Hawaii Blues fan report and the St. Louis fan report and all that.
There you go, man.
Wow, I'm losing it.
That's good. Hey,
all right, man.
Sleep. Stay away from that Taco Bell, buddy. I'll talk to you later, man.
No problem, bro. You have a good one, man.